The American presidents were people like you and like me, or at least that's how the founders intended them to be. Hi, my name's Teddy Ebby. Welcome back to my reoccurring segment where we're talking about the nicknames of the US presidents from the past. Last time, we wrapped up the three most popular positive nicknames of the first dynastic president in US history, President number 23, Benjamin Harrison. I say dynastic president because, well, he's the grandson of the previous US president, William Henry Harrison. But just because your granddaddy was in the White House and so were you, doesn't mean that you had smooth sailing. No, today we're going to be talking about Benjamin Harrison's three most popular negative nicknames, insults reserved specifically for him.
Well, I guess you've come to be of your granddaddy's opinion that I ain't fit to live with.
And, well, negative nickname number one is rather an interesting one, and it can be mixed with a different nickname, but I'm going to mash them together and say that Benjamin Harrison was frequently called the human iceberg, or also the White House iceberg. Unlike his predecessor, Grover Cleveland, who was attacked because of his policies, Harrison was attacked instead because of, well, his looks and his demeanor, how he behaved. Friends, allies, and enemies alike could all admit that Harrison was a bit aloof, cold, and way too formal in even informal settings. He was emotionally reserved, and that came off as, well, a president who was difficult to approach and someone who was difficult to read, to know what they were thinking until it came out of their mouth. This demeanor was often compared with the president who sandwiched his two terms, Grover Cleveland being the 22nd and 24th US president with Harrison stuck in between. Well, Cleveland had a propensity to explode in anger, and, well, Harrison did not. He was much more of a cool and cold anger.
You know, you're really much too serious.
You see, the late 19th century increasingly rewarded presidents who could engage with their voters, with the electorate. But Harrison wasn't really a natural at, well, the whole people thing. He preferred debating constitutional law to, well, entertaining a crowd.
I guess I'm too shy to come forward.
And so political cartoons of the day emphasized his rigidness and over-serious posture. Unlike many other Gilded Age presidents, Harrison didn't lean on friends and allies to make political headway. He was determined to be independent, which can be a good thing, but also freezes out anybody who wants to cultivate any sort of warm relationship with the president. And that definitely didn't help with Harrison's legacy issues, which can be seen in negative nickname number two, where he was referred to cleverly as the grandfather's hat. As mentioned previously, Benjamin Harrison was the grandson of former US President William Henry Harrison. And many people argued that, well, Benjamin Harrison had only inherited the office. Harrison wasn't the first US president to share a last name with a former US president. There were John Adams and his son John Quincy Adams, but, well, John Adams and Quincy Adams were so incredibly distinct in their own personalities that the weaknesses of Benjamin Harrison's personality led people to easily accuse him of riding into the presidency on nothing other than his grandfather's legacy.
Blatant nepotism if I've ever seen it.
Political cartoons of the day showed Benjamin Harrison, well, trying on an oversized version of his grandfather's hat, almost like a kid playing at who his grandfather was. What's more is Americans have, and particularly during this era, have always prided themselves on rejecting hereditary authority. The United States was formed out of the rejection of a hereditary monarchy, and England, which was so dominated by political families as well as lordships who followed necessary bloodlines. But the irony is, Benjamin Harrison's resume hardly required any sort of affiliation with his grandfather anyways. The man was a legend in his own right. He commanded troops during the Civil War, he argued cases in front of the Supreme Court, he served in the Senate, and had built himself a respectable legal career.
You should be impressed.
So even though he was impressive in his own right, and nobody really believed that the presidency had become some sort of hereditary office, his opponents still seized on this sort of misconception to demean him. But that was somewhat torpedoed when it came to negative nickname number 3, where he was referred to as the billion-dollar president. Harrison's term in the White House just happened to coincide with an era in congressional politics that, well, were also known as the billion-dollar Congress.
$1 billion cash from each country.
Democrats in the Congress who had just gotten a taste of what federal power was like again after electing Grover Cleveland to office, well, they rallied behind this idea that the Republican establishment was spending too much money. They argued, as did many of Benjamin Harrison's critics, that the president was too close with Congress in terms of fiscal policy. They both agreed that spending more federal money and building up the federal government was a good thing, and there were plenty of people who did disagree vehemently. And they disagreed with him enough to re-elect a man who had just been in office, Grover Cleveland. This sandwiching of presidential terms would push Benjamin Harrison out of the limelight and, well, into the forgetful annals of history.
I'll give you a free ride down this here street in a wheelbarrow if Benjamin Harrison wins.
But we already talked about Grover Cleveland, both his positive and negative nicknames, so instead we're going to skip President number 24, move on to President number 25, none other than William McKinley, and we're going to talk about his 3 most popular positive nicknames. But for now, my name's Teddy Evie. These have been the 3 most popular negative nicknames of President number 23, Benjamin Harrison. Join me next time.